Hello, and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me, as always, is Mike.
Hello there! Today is a very special episode of the Casual Cinecast. Normally, you would be hearing Justin talk right about now. However, today, he is not a host. He is a guest. That's right. We are interviewing Justin, along with his writing companion, John Patrick Hughes, to talk about their film, Camino, which is about to hit Amazon Prime Friday.
Well, then why don't you just help me figure out something to do with it, then?
Dude, what's there to talk about? We need to take this to the cops, like, right fucking now.
No way.
What the fuck do you mean, no way?
Mark, we stole this. It's stolen. It's stolen. We stole it. We've stolen several coolers, in case you've forgotten. What do we tell the cops, huh? Oh, no, sir, officer, we don't traffic kidneys. No, we just found these. You know what they do? They come up here, search this apartment, and find 4,000 other goddamn coolers. You know what that means, Mark? We go to jail.
They're not our kidneys.
Do you expect the perpetrators to just come out and claim them at that point? Because I sure don't.
Justin, John, are you there?
I think so.
Yes, we are so here.
Are we in it? Is this the podcast?
This is the podcast. I want to welcome both of you to the podcast, Justin and John.
Yeah, Justin, not quite so much because we see him all the time, but John, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Excited to be here.
Yeah. All right, guys. So, real quick, let me just ask you, what is the official date that your movie drops on Amazon?
It's February 8th.
Yeah.
February 8th. So if
All
you're
right.
listening to this and it is on or after February 8th, go to Amazon and watch the movie.
And it should be. Full disclosure, we're recording this before February 8th, but it should come out probably on February 8th or right after. So it should be out at the time that you're listening to this. Yeah, and you'll be able to go on and rent it or buy it. I don't think it's part of the Amazon Prime package, is it?
No, it will. I believe it'll be available on Amazon Prime. So if you have Prime, it'll be free.
Hey.
Go watch it.
Yeah, have at it.
Yeah.
Holy goodness.
If not, it's I believe $9.99 for the HD copy, or $3.99 you can rent an HD copy.
Hey.
And watch it right there in your house on your preferred streaming box, whatever you want to call it.
My phone.
Your phone.
Yeah.
Please watch it on a phone.
My Apple Watch.
Yeah.
Please.
That's where I watch everything.
Watch it on the guy next to you on the bus's Apple Watch.
Make that dude pay for Amazon Prime. Okay.
Okay, so we kind of just jumped straight in, so let me go ahead and ask you guys to set the scene a little bit. So, Justin, people who listen to the podcast regularly might not realize that you are a filmmaker. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how this film came to be, how you met John, and how Camino came to be?
Right. So my interest in film started with you guys at Blockbuster, and pretty quickly that moved into me wanting to try and make films. So I went to film school. I did undergrad and grad film school, and my thesis for graduate school to get my master's degree was to make a feature-length film, which was the whole reason that I went to grad school in the first place, right? Because I wanted to make a feature film. I made a ton of shorts in undergrad, and shorts are fun, but the goal, even from before I ever stepped foot in film school, was make a feature film.
Right.
So I think about a year to a year and a half before I was ready to start making my feature film, I met John. We were in a screenwriting class together. Mm-hmm. We might have met once or twice in passing before them, just him being in the film department, but we really got to know each other and became friends from the screenwriting class, because we would walk the same direction after class, and eventually we were instead of walking awkwardly next to each other and not saying anything, we became friends. Started talking.
Sometimes it's just easier to become friends than it is to make excuses not to talk to one another.
Yeah,
exactly.
I was renting a place that was 80 feet from the film department at our school, and Justin, after that class, had to go to the film department where he worked in the checkout room to rent out gear to students.
Yeah.
And the walk was across campus, so it's
So
a pretty
it was a
awkward
long, awkward
18-minute walk with another person you just don't talk to.
Yeah.
So eventually that had to stop. Someone had to say something.
Yeah, so we became friends in that class, and one of the things you have to do in that class, you have to write a feature-length script, and you also have to pitch that script to the class. It's kind of like the midterm. You pitch your outline, that's where I first heard the story of Camino, was like John pitching this story. I like fell in love with the premise, which John, do you want to tell him like what the plot of the movie is and like the premise is?
Sure. Yeah. So the plot of Camino, or premise, I guess, would be that it's about a couple of underage, sort of slackery youths who steal coolers out of trucks in order to find beer, because that is something that I did as a much younger and less valuable member of society.
Right. Okay.
Who ultimately steal a cooler and get it home and open it and find that instead of beer, it has human kidneys that are illegally being trafficked across the state and are now in way over their heads. And hopefully hilarity ensues from there.
Yeah, not to give away too many details because we're going to be spoiler free, so you go watch the film. But yeah, like the kids get the kidneys, they're trying to figure out what to do with them, and meanwhile the criminals see the cooler driving away in the back of an El Camino. Then they start tracking down every El Camino of the same color in the county, one by one, like trying to track down their coolers. So that's why the film's called Camino, because the two main characters drive Camino, and it's pretty essential to the plot and keeping it moving.
Yeah, it was also a very good excuse to buy an El Camino, so it seemed like the thing to do at a time.
Oh, do you still have the El Camino?
I don't anymore. I sold it, I think, probably about a year ago. I held on to it for a good while after the principal photography was done. But eventually when it came time to like get married and try to be a little bit of an adult, shout out to my wife out there, who is the best. But I realized that I had one but like two cars. The math there seemed wrong, so I sold it.
Real quick, I want to step back to you stealing coolers, and I want to know, did you actually ever find beer in these coolers? I mean, like, and where were you stealing them
all
from?
the time?
Like, really?
Yeah. So
I imagine that's what he would normally find in the coolers. If he was doing it right.
So it seems...
Yeah. So I grew up in like deep East Texas, like pretty much on the border. I mean, like 35 minutes from Louisiana. So like as far east as you can be while still being in Texas. And there's a lot of rivers and then there's like Sam Rayburn Lake and a lot of other lakes and just places where people go fishing and everyone drives a truck. So you could go down to a boat ramp or anywhere else where someone was loading their boat in, and there would be a truck with a cooler in the bed of it. And if you had the, we'll say moxie to get out and run over there and grab it and run away, 9 times out of 10, there was a beer or two in there.
Nice. Okay.
Occasionally, just like a sandwich or someone's lunch. Yeah.
I was about to say 1 time out of 10, you get in a fight.
Yeah. 1 time out of 10, you just drop it and hope no one catches you.
Yeah. So obviously, stealing coolers to find beers, like it's a very unique thing that I'd not heard of before, but it's also just kind of funny and very East Texas, very Texas really. And like Mike, you and I grew up in a small town in Texas, so like when I heard that story in the screenwriting class, when I heard him pitch it, I was like, that's a great idea for a movie. That's awesome. So it always just stuck in my head as like this great idea for a film. And so getting ready to make my thesis film, I wrote a couple of scripts. They were okay. I liked them. Some of them seemed hard to do with like the money that I had. Some of them, just ended up being bad scripts, right? And I always had this story of John's Camino in my head. So we were really good friends by that point. We were hanging out all the time, doing a lot of lunches together.
Love a lunch.
And and so I approached him. I was like, hey, what if for my thesis we collaborate and I make Camino? I'll direct, obviously, because I have to. But, we'll work on the script together and like produce it together and just kind of like do everything else 50-50.
I believe you were actually just coming back from one of our aforementioned lunches outside of my apartment, and Justin asked me exactly that. And from my perspective, like I had written Camino partially for screenwriting class, but also with the intention of like, well, maybe like a decade from now, I'll have enough money,
right,
or I've gotten far enough to where I could come back to my hometown and make this movie, because I had written it specific to every location. I knew where everything was going to be. I was like, maybe one day I'll be able to come home and do it. And so then that timeline was pushed to like, do you want to do it like a month from now, essentially, because the ability showed up. So yeah, like why wouldn't you want to make a movie with one of your really good friends and just go do that? It seemed like a lot of fun. And so, yeah, we wrote up I think we found like a really super boilerplate like contract agreement on like, Google 50-50 split ownership of thing X. And signed it, and that felt legal enough. And then, yeah, we jumped pretty much head straight into making it.
All right. Well, let me ask you guys this. The film is, I would say, mostly comedic, obviously, but I feel like there's also a lot of, I guess, black comedy in there as well. So,
Yeah.
What are your influences, right? Like, what films or what TV shows were you, like, channeling to get the tone of Camino?
I'll let John answer that first because, the first draft of the script was his, so I want to know what he was thinking, and then I can say, what I was thinking that probably changed that some.
So like I was like the first like inspiration I guess for like tone and everything was just the real life East Texas, like people I grew up with and things I grew up around, and there's that sort of inherently folksy, like East Texas has almost a history of like front porch storytelling styles of sort of rambly stories that are always a little bit goofy because there's just a lot of odd characters around there. And outside of that, I've always been like a really big fan of just like age wise, I think like the height of like Miramax would have been when I was like 14. So like every Kevin Smith and Coen Brothers movie, I had to go see it, and stuff like that. And that sort of found its way in there inherently, I think, of just movies where people talk a lot, but also a lot of very odd things are happening. And the idea of, if something bad can happen on screen, but the audience will laugh at it, I think that's like a big win. So that was kind of like the North Star of the movie, I guess you would say.
Yeah, and those are the things that appealed to me. Like it immediately had, Kevin Smith, Coen Brothers sort of vibe to it. Like there's definitely like a Coen Brothers-esque like use of language to the script, to like the first draft of it that I read. And then just it's sort of like an indie Kevin Smith vibe where there's not any like major set pieces. Like there's a lot of the characters like have like big dialogue scenes, and like there's lots of scenes with like a lot of dialogue, but like very entertaining dialogue. And I've always liked that. I grew up renting as many Kevin Smith movies as I could every weekend from like the video store. So like I kind of immediately picked up on that in a script. So that's what I liked and what like really appealed to me, and I tried to embrace.
Yeah, I definitely understand the Coen Brothers influence for sure. Certainly the Kevin Smith influence, especially in the characters. However, I also, and maybe it's just the aesthetic of being in Texas, but I also kind of get like a Linklater vibe in some ways as well. I think that's mainly in like the look of the film.
I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously, it was a student film, like graduate thesis film, so we're not working with all the money in the world or all the best equipment out there in the world, far from it. So it definitely has like a indie film sort of vibe.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
And also I think there's a good amount of the movie that I would say like kind of centers around like characters hanging out,
right?
Yeah, at least like early on, right? And that's something that my mind goes to for like Linklater. So I haven't thought about that before, but that's an interesting comparison.
Now that you point that out, I could see a scenario where if the crux of the movie at the end of the first act that sort of changes what happens from here on out, if that didn't happen,
exactly,
then the movie would maybe just be slacker.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
sure.
There's a lot of like hanging out in a sleepy small town. The vibe actually genuinely captured in this movie that before plot kicks in does feel very unique and all its own.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but and I think that's kind of just like you're saying, one of those things about those sort of small towns. And if you grew up in a small town, or if you've ever spent a lot of time in one,
right.
But particularly if you grew up, you realize that like you spend probably like 80% of your day trying to waste the rest of your day because there's just not
right.
enough things happening to fill 24 hours. Yeah, and that's sort of, I think, apparent in the film.
Yeah, I mean, as someone like Justin said earlier, he and I come from the same town, as does Chris.
But they're all Granbury boys?
Well, I don't know Chris's story about how long he lived there, but yeah, for sure, me and Justin. But
I didn't grow up there, but as an adult, I moved there.
I got you.
But as someone who did grow up in a small town, it definitely feels like it was written by someone who understands small towns.
I'm well versed in small towns. I was born and raised in a town of like 30,000 people, and I lived in the same house for 18 years before I went to college. But, even when you're living in a dorm room, you still really live at your parents' house.
Right.
Yeah.
At least you do laundry there.
Yeah. No, I definitely grew up in the kind of place where if I was out in public, at least one person 25 years older than me would stop me and go, "Are you David Hughes' son?" And I'd go, "Yeah." Or they would go, "Are you Kathleen Hughes' son?" And I would say, "Yes."
Right.
And they would go, "Oh, she taught me math when I was in high school," because my mom's taught at the local high school for like 35 years. So
Nice.
Everyone's had my mom for math. It's just that kind of town.
Yeah, my mom worked at the dispatch office for like in 911. Like if you call 911, you would get her for like many, many years in that town. Mm-hmm. So a couple times when I was a teenager, if I got pulled over by the police or anything like that, I could name drop my mom.
Oh man,
and I could get away with tickets for like a little bit.
And I've been with you several times when you've done that.
Several. Don't exaggerate.
Maybe a couple times maybe when you've done that. And like I always find it really entertaining, but then like later on when I get pulled over and I can't do that, I get kind of pissed off.
Yeah, totally. I would.
I'm friends with Mike, and I know his mom.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. So this is your thesis film, right?
Correct.
And so you get a bunch of stuff from the college, but you also decided to finance it outside of that. And how did all that work? And what was your reasoning behind that? And what did you get from the college necessarily? And what was the financing from the other locations from?
Sure. Yeah. So from the college, we got equipment.
Yep.
We got basically most of our crew and our lunches for the day. So if we ever had to do like a second meal, like a dinner, that came out of our personal budget. All of the craft, like snack food on set, came out of our budget. And well, we decided to like increase our budget because I had a very, very small amount of money put away to make this film, right? And it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
Because what I wanted to do, and like one of the main things that I've always seen in student films as an issue or a problem is it's one of two things, and both regarding like the cast, right? And one of it is just straight up like bad acting, right? Because usually you're getting people to act for free, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or I guess I want to say age inappropriate actors, right? Where you have a character who's clearly like 5 years older than another character playing like, and one of them's the mother and one of them's the daughter, right?
Yeah. You've got your 25-year-old friend playing 38, and just like no one's gonna buy this.
Yeah. So basically my goal was like, I'm gonna subvert that problem that I always see in student films, and I'm gonna like raise money to hire actors and hire age appropriate actors and pay people so I can get, obviously not top tier talent, but like I can find talented people. But I basically thought it would open up a lot of options, like to be able to pay actors. And so what we decided to do was do a Kickstarter for the film, and we raised,
I think we raised $11,000
from the Kickstarter.
Yeah, we were shooting for 10, got 11. I think is the way that worked.
And then we got in touch with like a person from John's hometown who also became an investor in the film and put in, and he basically like doubled that.
Yeah,
essentially doubled what we made from the Kickstarter.
Yeah, so he had heard about a Kickstarter for a movie to be shot in my hometown and kind of vaguely knew who I was and reached out and was like, hey, I think this is really cool. I think it's a good idea. I think it's fun to try to like make something and make it here where all the money goes right back into the community that sort of inspired the story. And he was down to help out with that. So we got some more money from him, and then Justin put in his money. I put in pretty much every dollar I had.
Yeah.
And
John's dad bought the Camino because
my dad is a used car dealer. So he called like a car buddy up in Arkansas who had just had someone trade in an old El Camino, and he sold it to us at the trade-in value that they gave for it. Like we got a super good deal on it, and just had to like have someone drive it down from Arkansas. And yeah, so that was essentially, we just called in every favor and bugged every family member and friend that we had for like hey, if you were planning to go to Starbucks today, would you maybe not and instead give me that $4? Like, I promise I'm going to try to do something cool with it.
Yeah. So,
and that's how that all worked.
Yeah, and that's how we finance film. It's a bit of like bits and pieces, lots of favors, a little bit of fundraising, which, you know, we were able to get like a pretty rad cast and like able to pay our actors, right, instead of asking them to come out for free, which I mean felt really good.
Yeah,
you keep saying you got to pay your actors, but I mean, as somebody that was in the film,
did we not pay you?
I didn't see any money.
Well, we got to pay most of our actors.
Yeah,
we got to pay the good actors.
Yeah.
Oh no! Why?
Yeah. Yeah. So there were people like Chris, you know, obviously they would come out for like a day, 2 days, and like usually those are friends. Like obviously Chris and I are friends who would, you know, come out and do us a favor, which we appreciate so much, Chris.
Yeah,
You're so
Chris,
nice.
I can't thank you enough.
The pleasure was all mine, to be honest. So thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, another fun thing for like if you listen to the show regularly, Chris is in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, John and I are in the movie too, but like you can't really see us.
You wouldn't be able to
very
pick us
well.
out of a lineup. Yeah.
Yeah. You mostly see our backsides, and which are good looking too.
I mean, I'm no complaints over here.
But Chris is like, his face is in it. He's got a prominent scene. He does some real acting because John and I can't do that.
No. But if you're at home and you're like, I wonder what Chris looks like, yet another good reason to watch Camino on your Apple Watch or nearest device that has Amazon. He is in there.
Yeah, you can see
find
him
out what I look like.
I gotta say, it's a tour de force performance from Chris Reeves.
Yeah.
Tune in.
Yeah.
Buy stock early, folks, because it's gonna get high. Get in on the Chris Reeves train while you can.
Yeah. Hire him now.
There you
While
go.
you can.
Yeah. There we go.
So,
So
go on, Chris.
I was just going to ask about, so you talked about hiring actors, and what is the casting and the production process like? Is there any specific stories or challenges that you guys had that you want to talk about?
So my favorite thing about like the casting process was once we got around to doing callbacks, you know, so like we did like we had an open casting call in East Texas for like anyone local who just wanted to come in and audition right there in front of us, which was great. And we got some people from that, I believe. And it was a lot of awesome people, but we also did a really, put out the call for like some video auditioning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From like because we're in like small town East Texas. So we put out for like people to audition from Houston, Austin, Shreveport, like kind of like the area within like 5
Oklahoma
to 6 hours
City,
of us.
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. And so then we did callbacks where we took the people we liked from that and actually, you know, gave them gas money essentially just to drive in and read in front of us. But it was really, really interesting and kind of a new experience, at least for me, I think probably for both of us, to see that many people in one place to read one role. And you realize, like, when you get into the room, the two leads in the story are named Mark and Jack. And you could go into the audition room where we were kind of holding everyone, and there was like 15 kids who you knew were all Marks and like 12 kids there to play Jack, because there's just clones of the same person, and it's really weird. To just see like 20 of the same human being like all hanging out together.
It's like that scene in La La Land where Emma Stone goes like her first audition that you see in the film, and she comes out and like there's like 12, 14 other redheads with like white shirts
that
look like they just got off their like barista or waitressing gig. It's kind of like that. It really happens.
It's very interesting, but that was fun.
Yeah, it was super fun. One of my favorite things that we did, because the performances were so important, because, you know, like we said, there is a lot of like dialogue in this film and a lot of like
there's a lot of just two people in a room
talking. So we wanted the performances to be great, particularly between the two main characters who are supposed to be like best friends and have been best friends for a really long time. So we had to make sure their chemistry was right. So one of my favorite things that we decided to do was when we auditioned them, we had, you know, like John said, we had a bunch of Marks, a bunch of Jacks. We had them all come on the same day, and we had every single Mark read with every entity of Jack, right? Mm-hmm. To instead of just having them like pairing them off and having them read with a random one. Because what if like a bad Mark or great Mark gets with a bad Jack, right? Or
and
that doesn't
it seems
work,
like
right?
the scene's bad. Yeah.
So we're not only looking for like the best actors, but also the best actors who have like also the best pair who like give like the best chemistry, right? So that's one thing we did in casting that like you don't always probably have the time to do that, but it was super important to us, and like I think it paid off to do that.
Yeah, you hear a lot about people doing like chemistry reads where they've already cast one person and then they read a bunch of people to sort of play off of them.
Right.
And I guess we just kind of took that to heart as much as possible, as opposed to casting one person and being like, okay, that's Mark. Now let's test him out with 100 Jacks. It was, let's test out every Mark with every Jack, because if maybe this guy's the third best Mark and this guy's the fifth best Jack or something, but together they're the best pair.
Right. That's like ultimately the best decision to make.
Yeah, then they should get the part, because that's what's going to be on the screen is those two together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a good time.
Yeah. I think that's like the casting was like the most important thing to get the movie right, and I think it paid off really well. Like I'm super proud of every actor in the film and the performances they give. Like I think they all carry the film really.
No, you should be proud. They are great performances, and everyone in the movie is very delightful to watch. I do have a question though.
Fire away.
Okay, so you mentioned you kickstarted this. You mentioned also it was for school. So okay, the film is shot. Post-production is done. The picture's locked, everything like that. What is the next step? What is the process of getting Blu-rays out there, selling this thing? What do you do? I'm sure plenty of people listening right now are probably interested in making their own movies, or at the very least interested in how indie movies like this get from a small indie production in East Texas to Amazon.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit of a long story. I'll let John start because I think the first step for any film would be to try and get into film festivals. Like you can distribute on your own. Like it's pretty easy to do it by yourself. But you kind of want to get your film out there and see what it can do. So John handled a lot of the film festival stuff. So I'm going to let him talk about that.
So everything that you just asked about like people who would be interested in figuring out these things, that was me and Justin right when we finished this movie, because we had never made a movie either, or knew what you were supposed to do with one once you have one, which is
I know. I started college with Justin at the same time, and I don't have any idea how to do those things. So I know he must have learned it after I left, because I know he didn't know how to do it before.
Yeah,
I don't know if he knows how to do it now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough. We really kind of figured it out, and I wouldn't even say figured it out. That's probably a stretch, but like we flew by the seat of our pants a bit.
Yeah, no, we really kind of one step at a time did, in the sense that once we were done with the movie, like the one thing you don't learn in film school is like what to do when you make a movie, because most people in film school are never going to make a movie, which is kind of another part of the reason why me and Justin so desperately wanted to make one while we had access to so many resources. Right. Was because like no one's ever going to hand us like a room full of equipment again and be like, do whatever you want with it.
Yeah. For as little money as that.
Yeah. So like our very first, once we were done with the movie and post was all handled and everything was squared away, we just wanted to get into a film festival.
Goal number one.
That was it. That was number one. It was like, we want to take it somewhere, that's not some tiny little festival, not an online festival or any of that. Not that there's anything wrong with any of those things. Like any way you can get your movie out there is a positive. But we wanted to have the experience of like, let's get it into a festival where we can show it to like 150 strangers who don't owe us anything, who don't like us and don't have to be nice to us.
Right.
That way we can have like the real experience of like, we made a movie, we showed it in a theater to strangers. Like that would be great.
Yeah. Even if it fails, like the experience, right? Like now we know.
Yeah. Like you just like, you gotta take a shot, I guess. So I put together a list of 10 film festivals where I was like, if we got to have our world premiere at any of these, we would be super stoked. And we submitted to all 10 of them. And the first 9 told us to go to hell, essentially. They were not interested. And the 10th said, yeah, like come on down. And that was the Lone Star Film Festival, which is up in Fort Worth, like DFW area.
Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth,
for
Texas.
Those who don't know.
For you non-Texans. And which is an amazing festival. If you have a project out there, submit it to them. They run like 5 theaters. There's like 250 films there. It's a very big to-do. And the people who run it are amazing and super kind and gracious. And so like they put out the schedule and there's like an award ceremony Saturday at like 5:30, and we were scheduled to screen Saturday at 4. So we were like, okay, well, we know we're not winning anything because they've already decided what the awards are before anyone even sees our movie. So that's fine. So pressure's off.
Right.
And so that Saturday we screened in front of like 210 people.
Yeah. It was a 200 seat theater, roughly like 200.
Yeah.
And we looked at it and we're like, we're going to fill like a quarter of that, maybe. And it's going to be like our family and friends.
Yeah.
So we were like, just kind of like floored that it was completely full when we showed it, which was great.
Right. At first we were nervous. We were like, oh, this is going to look horrible when 11 people show up. And then 200 people show up and you get nervous because you're like, now this is too many people. I didn't actually want this many people here. But we screened the movie and went over to the award ceremony and we won the Audience Choice Award, which was amazing. And that ended up sort of being like our step 2 was like we won a film festival. So afterwards we were talking to the people who run the festival and they were like, this is going to be really great for y'all as far as getting into other festivals. And we were like, well, we never even considered getting into more than one festival. And they were like, well, now that you can use this, promote your movie as something that's won an award at a festival people have heard of to get you into more festivals.
Yeah. It's like a little shiny thing that catches like a festival programmer attentions when like your film has a Audience Choice Award on it, because it's like, okay, people liked this.
Yeah, like you can at least convince a festival that one audience full of people were happy with what they got, right? And so we did another, and that led to another film festival. I think we ended up doing 16 in total by the time we were all said and done. And that was when, in the middle of that was when we really started discussing the notion of like, okay, we should probably try to get this movie out, because when we first decided to make it, you don't know if you'll actually finish it. And then once you finish it, you're like, I guess we should get people to see it. And then once enough people have seen it, you kind of move into trying to get it available to people. And everyone you meet in the film festival circuit, at least the way we did it, has some experience. Whether they have more than you or the same amount as you, they have a different experience than you. And I asked everyone I met for every tip they had on who do you talk to, who should I email, how do I get in touch with someone to write a review of the movie, how do I get the movie in front of someone to even screen it to see if they would consider wanting to purchase it or release it. And we just did that and whittled it down for a while until we had essentially accumulated enough knowledge to feel like, okay, we could, like, there's a way to get the movie out into the world where people can actually see it.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it takes a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, when did it...
We shot the movie in June of 2015.
Yeah.
It's going to be February 2019 when it's available for people to buy it.
Yeah, we finished it in... So we shot in June 2015.
It was
finished in April of 2016.
Yep.
Premiered at the festival
November
in November
2016.
of 2016. And now it's about to come out
February
on Amazon,
2019.
February 2019. So, that's some trial and error in there. Obviously, you can get your film out there on Amazon quicker if you want.
Oh, yeah.
But there was a lot of trial and error, trying some different things. Things failing, things failing.
Yeah.
Then,
yeah. Just getting things
then
wrong.
Goes to Amazon, right? Which is, it's great. I'm just excited that people can see the film,
Yeah, the thing I'm most looking forward to is just that. One of the joys of doing all those festivals and having as many people see it and creating whatever buzz we did manage to create about the film is that all the time people ask you, hey, how do I see your movie? This sounds great. And it really sucks to go, oh, you can't.
Yeah.
There's no way to see it. I don't know why I spent this time trying to convince you to. And now it will be really, really nice to go, oh, I'm so glad you want to watch it. Here are avenues for you to watch it. Yeah. And it hitting Amazon on February 8th, for those who are interested, is hopefully just the start. We plan to get it in more places, and we think maybe now we have the ability to do that and to get it out there and to spread it around, and for people to hopefully for some word of mouth to catch on, and for people to just watch it and share it with their friends and have fun watching it, because it's like that's the intention of the movie. Is it's not some 3-hour long epic that's trying to trying to really make you think. It's like 75 minutes of just fun, and hopefully you can just have a good time with your friends and kill an hour 15.
Yeah.
That's so maybe it's for people in small towns who have too many hours to kill. Maybe that's our demographic.
Yeah.
So all that work in the film festivals, all that trying to get word of mouth around there, did it pay off? Did you win any awards?
Yeah. So obviously we already talked about our premiere festival, Lone Star. We won Audience Choice Award. We played in a bunch of different festivals all over. We played out in Virginia. We played a bunch of other places in Texas and in California. One in Belgium?
Bulgaria.
Oh my.
Bulgaria. That's what it is. Bulgaria.
Yeah.
And
where we won Best Feature Film.
We won Best Feature Film
Wait,
at a
what?
Bulgarian film festival.
Bulgarians
nice.
love East Texas.
Yeah.
I've always
lesson
said
learned.
Bulgaria is the East Texas of Europe.
I'm going to take credit for that, guys. Bulgarian people love me.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. And so
Chris, so hot right now in Bulgaria.
Chris is blowing up in Bulgaria.
yeah. So at another film festival called Genre Blast, which does like a lot of genre films like horror, dark comedies, action, that sort of thing, we won Best On-Screen Duo for our two main characters.
Mm-hmm.
Mark
Cool.
and Jack, the actors, won Best On-Screen Duo. We won Funniest Feature Film
Yeah, it's like Best Comedy.
and
Audience Choice Award.
Audience Choice again at
And we
that
won that
festival.
again. We screened in Victoria, Texas, where we won what they call the Crossroads Award, which is essentially, I think, like
It's like a grant to get
yeah,
more equipment, essentially.
Yeah, it was like an award and a grant to have access to more equipment to make another movie. So maybe we will get to make another movie.
Sort of like we like what you did here. We want to help you make another one. You know, it's like a you're promising sort of like thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's kind of
IOU.
You almost want to say like I
I don't know.
But and we also won our actress Bonnie Gale won Breakthrough Performance, which is like an award they give. I essentially, I guess, for like best actor that we haven't seen before, sort of thing.
Right.
Which was awesome. I'm really proud of that, and that Cody and Matt won that best on-screen duo is great.
Yeah, that's a really cool award to win, too, because that confirms that those chemistry tests paid off.
Yes, exactly.
It worked in the long run.
Yeah, so we picked up like a pretty good amount of awards, and of course we slap all those on our pictures and stuff.
Oh, yeah, why wouldn't
That'll
you, right?
catch
You
people's
slap
attention, those little
all
laurels.
those things on there. Yeah.
It's all going on the DVD box.
Gotta let people know.
Yeah.
All of that was far more than we obviously ever expected to get. The idea that we made a movie in a town of like 30,000 people, and it's been seen in Los Angeles and Bulgaria.
Yeah, right. But don't forget Bulgaria.
Yeah, and Virginia and Oklahoma and all these other places that just aren't Texas. It's kind of amazing. Yeah. If anyone out there is trying to make something or has made something and has any questions, like wants more in-depth answers in regards to like the festival circuit, or how do you go about trying to get a distribution deal or any of that, like find us online on Facebook or Instagram or something, or Twitter, and reach out. I'll be happy to try to tell you anything I can.
Yeah, and obviously I'm on the podcast, so you could email the podcast email if you want to.
Yeah, shoot something casually. What is it? Cinecast?
casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Or, you can search, was it facebook.com/Camino movie?
Yeah, I believe we're facebook.com/Camino movie. I think on Twitter, we're like Camino_movie.
Yeah.
And on Instagram, we're like at Camino the movie.
Oh, man, was just Camino movie taken?
Yes. Yeah.
Like everywhere. It's
Those
very
bastards.
frustrating.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's about like 25 films named just Camino.
Yeah, isn't there one that just came out?
I think one comes out every 2 years. I've learned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, El Camino Christmas is what I was thinking of.
Yeah, El Camino Christmas was like the Netflix original movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
People send us that like crazy.
Yeah, they did. Like,
They're like, "Have you seen this? Can you sue Netflix?" I don't think so.
I don't think so. They have nothing to do with one each other.
It has like one word similar to our
Yeah.
title and then nothing else plot-wise.
Though, from what I can tell, we have the only movie called Camino in which an El Camino is actually in the movie, or like a part of the movie.
Yeah.
I think most other movies just like are using it as like the path, which is what it is in Spanish, I believe.
So, you guys mentioned that your inspirations were that of the Coen brothers and Kevin Smith. So let me ask you guys, if someone were to try to describe this movie to somebody and recommend it, they would say, if you like if you like X, you would like Camino, right? So what is a movie that someone would describe as similar to your movie? Like, for example, I'll go first just so you kind of understand what I'm talking about.
Please do.
Sure.
Yeah, so, okay, if I were to recommend Camino to somebody, I would say something along the lines of like, hey, if you like Mallrats, which is like the obvious one, but like aside from Mallrats and the obvious Kevin Smith ones, I also get just like a very heavy 90s movie vibe from Camino.
Yeah.
Just like very, very strong 90s movie. And so what I was thinking of the whole time, story-wise has nothing to do with it, but tone-wise, I would say Empire Records.
Oh,
that's a great movie.
yeah.
I'll take that 10 times out of 10.
Watched
Yeah.
that movie so much, so there's no doubt, like in the 90s, and I loved it. And so there's
Yeah.
no doubt that somewhere that ended up.
Featuring Texan Renee Zellweger.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. It all ties back. No, but
Yeah.
Shouts out to Bridget Jones.
but for real, I think Empire Records totally captures like this. I don't know how to describe it, but I guess just nostalgic 90s vibe where even the soundtrack, I think, sounds very like early 2000s, late 90s to me. And to me, this movie just like oozes that kind of aura, right? So if any of you guys are of the age of like late 20s, mid 30s, and you grew up on those like 90s comedies, I think you guys would really enjoy Camino.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's funny that you say that, because one of the things that I said often while making the film is like, my goal is to come out with a film that I think I would have liked when I was 13 or 14.
Yeah. We used to like regularly say as like a touchstone for like tone and a lot of other things was like, this should be the kind of movie where if you're 14, your parents won't let you watch it, but your friend Travis, his parents are cooler and you can just go to his house and watch it
Yeah.
and
Right,
feel like you're getting
yeah.
away with something. It's like one of those movies where like, I'm getting away with this. I watched it on, MTV2 at like 4 a.m. when it happened to be like circling around. And
Exactly.
I'm stoked on it.
Yeah, it's very much rated R. We haven't really talked about that.
Oh, that's
There's
true.
A
Yeah,
ton
yeah.
of language in it. So
Yeah. So my pick for this would also be, it's funny that we mentioned this earlier, but Suburbia. If Suburbia meets Fargo, which is definitely everything we talked about before, but it's got to be that
Linklater
this-
meets Coens.
Yeah, people hanging out and violence. That's kind of, like teenagers hanging out, and then there's violence as well.
Yeah,
So,
on the surface level alone, there's very much like a No Country for Old Men vibe to it.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing that interesting that Mike said it. I literally just Googled 90s movies because I was like, one of these movies is going to be similar to their movie because it has such a 90s feel, and you're right.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say Clerks because I think Clerks was too obvious, but yeah, so those are my choices.
Well, I think I can't remember if it was in a review or someone after a screening, in relation to like the last two movies y'all said, like someone came up to us and was like, I think it's in a review. I can't be for sure, but said that it was Clerks meets No Country for Old Men. And I was like, that's a really nice compliment in my book. I don't know if it's that
Absolutely,
good, but thank you.
Those are certainly movies to strive to be like.
yeah. Man, I love Suburbia. I haven't thought about that movie in a while, and like, I don't even know that it has a proper like DVD Blu-ray release. I've only seen it on VHS.
You know what? It does. I recently acquired an HD copy of that movie. I won't say how, but
Oh my gosh.
it exists.
I need it.
I haven't watched it yet. Oh, Justin, you do have access to it.
Sounds amazing.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I've seen that movie in, I want to say like 15 years.
I saw it on like Showtime late at night one night. I was just watching it because I had the little in, and I was a teenager.
In for nudity.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
And little did I know it was Giovanni Ribisi, so it wasn't that it wasn't that exciting when it finally showed up.
disappointment.
That's
Yeah,
not what
I
you
was-
were in the market for?
No, I was very disappointed, but
Yeah.
ultimately I was rewarded with a movie that I've never forgotten.
Yeah.
And it makes for a better story that way.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Cool. John, what would you suggest for this?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good ones right there. One of them that people threw out a lot was like Superbad. because it's that's also a film that's like about two friends who, in the pursuit of alcohol, end up in some wacky situations, which
I love Superbad. So
yeah, it's not unlike us in this movie at all. The very different things are happening, but yeah, Superbad's great. It's a funny movie, man. So yeah, I've heard that one before.
Just a sidebar real quick. I think I watched Superbad in the theater with Justin and Chris, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. I don't know. Not.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been to a movie where the audience laughed so much.
Right.
From start to finish. I think that is a great movie to compare it to as well, right? Like it's one of like I think that is like the 90s movie like
of the 2000s.
Yeah, of the 2000s. I'm trying to think like Torchbearer or like Carrying the Torch, of the 90s movie vibe.
Yeah, very much so. I would agree with that 100%. All right, Justin.
How about you, Justin?
Oh man, well you guys like took all the ones that I had, so I gotta think of another one on the spot here. Well, you said Fargo, Chris, right? And I think we kind of mentioned No Country for Old Men, but no one said it specifically. But like, there is a section of the movie, like one of the stories we follow is this trio of cops who are following like the criminals and like the sort of like trail of crime that they leave behind. And like to me, that one was always like it captures like the same humor with the cops that is like the humor comic relief that we get from the cops in No Country for Old Men. So maybe not like as a whole film, but like that, if you like enjoyed that tone and that humor with like the cops in No Country for Old Men, that was something I always really liked about the script and something I strove for, like with the scenes with the cops. And I think it comes across
even
pretty similar.
The police force in Twin Peaks, if you are familiar with that, like they've also
we somewhat infamously on the show, none of us have seen Twin Peaks, but
I've heard
that
Twin Peaks.
I've heard that comparison from other people though.
Don't shame us. I already know.
Oh my god! You're out there buying HD copies of Suburbia, and you haven't got around to watching Twin Peaks.
Hey man, don't judge. But here's what I would say though about your Coen Brothers comparison. I definitely get the No Country for Old Men vibes and the cops, but I think if I were to bring up my own comparison of like Coen Brothers films, I think this would fit more in line with Raising Arizona.
Justin loves Raising Arizona
and The
Totally,
Big Lebowski. Than story-wise, No Country for Old Men, like as far as just plot. But I think tonally, it feels very much like maybe not quite as silly as Raising Arizona, but not quite as serious as The Big Lebowski. Somewhere in between.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's always like it's really like surreal and kind of like sometimes you feel a little silly like comparing our little movie to like those films, but so it's kind of thank you, and it feels very complimentary, and like I'm trying not to smile like an idiot right now because
he's not succeeding at trying not to smile like an idiot. By the way, he very much is smiling and looks like an idiot, but that's fine. It's endearing, if anything.
All right, so finally, after all of that, your movie is on Amazon, so I guess it feels like there is probably a touchstone cleared or like achievement reached, I guess. So, what next for you guys? Like, are you guys planning on doing another movie, or do you have anything in the works?
Yeah. So I just finished making a short film with a guy named Peyton Follis, who actually wrote the movie As Far as the Eye Can See, which you guys also did a special podcast about.
Oh yeah.
One of those people I met along the film festival circuit who got back in touch with me about how he had this short film he wanted to make, and he first told me about it like 2 years ago, and it was one of those things where you're just like, yeah, man, we'll do it, and then you expect to never hear anything again. And then sure enough, like 3 months ago, he popped up, and we went ahead and did that. And so that is getting wrapped up right now. I'm finishing post on it, and then hopefully it will be doing the film festival circuit as a short, which would be fun.
Then of course we're working on scripts. We've written a couple of scripts, a couple of outlines, just kind of looking for that next idea that like A, we can like feasibly do, and B, like ignites that spark. Like we've got a couple of ideas, and we can't really talk too much about it, but like we're working on some stuff and like getting the ball rolling, I think.
Yeah. So
if I can make a recommendation, I hear you should really get an actor that's really hot in Bulgaria. I feel like that's where you need to cast.
If you know anyone, please.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. We'll see.
We don't know anyone. Just if you just be on the lookout. Chris isn't interested.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, no. So yeah, we're trying to get another film off the ground. Hopefully that will happen sooner rather than later, and hopefully this movie getting out will maybe in some way help get that ball rolling a little further. So we'll see. Y'all will be the first to know if we know anything, though. I promise.
Awesome. Well, guys, I wanted to say how proud I am of both of you guys. I've known Justin forever, and I think it's really exciting that it's on Amazon now, and it's super exciting for both of you guys, and I'm excited to see it and recommend it to my friends. So yeah, I'm really glad for both of you guys.
Thank
you, man.
I'm glad for you. People can finally see your performance.
Yeah, Bulgarians all over the place can now just go on to Amazon and check me out.
Well, Bulgaria's been chatting it up. They've been talking it up. But
they've been hearing about it since those film festivals. People have been talking about it. But for real, congratulations, guys. It's a really fun movie to watch. It's a fun, nice, quick, easy watch. And you know what? Everyone has Amazon, so check it out. And then follow these guys. See what they do next.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so before we go, John, where can people reach out to you on the internet to ask you about filmmaking or advice or offer you advice or whatever,
Yeah, I'll take any advice I can get. I believe you can find me on Twitter at JohnHughesTX, as in Texas. And then I'm on Instagram at JohnPatrickHughes. And if you go to Camino Movie on Facebook and send a message, I will see it. And we can connect through Facebook that way. And yeah, just reach out. Find me around. I'm around.
Okay. Justin, I know we have the show information, but you want to throw your stuff out there in case they want to reach out to you directly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm probably most active on Twitter for social media and still not that active. Like the most active I am is like through the podcast pages, right? And like doing stuff through that. So of course you can find us at Casual Cinecast. If you message us, I'll see that too. But my personal Twitter is at @JustinTheMiddle, which is a stupid pun, but whatever.
I get it though.
Yeah.
That's what Twitter's for.
Cool. So also, if you want to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast or review us on iTunes, you can find us under @CasualCinecast. Thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for our intro and outro music. You can find more of his music at www.soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. It was a really special episode, and we will see you next time.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Later.
See ya.
Bye.